Yo. 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 Get back up to this one. See what we got going on. Close that out. Let's back up. Well, we got a Dagogo video.
Is brought to you by Aura.
Love it.
Hi.
Can't get much better than having Dagogo.
220%. That's the astonishing increase in the share price of the California-based chip-making giant. They've secured the position of Cold Fusion. 220%. That's the astonishing increase in the share price. This video is brought to you by Aura. Hi, welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion. 220%. The astonishing increase in the share price of the California-based chip-making giant. They've secured the position as the highest performing stock in the S&P 500 for 2023. Traditionally, NVIDIA is the company behind companies.
But I used to turn green.
It powers Netflix, Adobe, Airbnb, NASA, and even Kellogg's cloud services. For those outside the tech space, NVIDIA is probably the largest company that you've never heard of. According to Amazon, more than 90% of Fortune 100 companies use AWS, or Amazon Web Services, which is powered by NVIDIA's hardware. Today, NVIDIA helps power AI systems, ChatGPT, and partners with Google too. It's also used in Amazon's robot warehouses. In summary, NVIDIA is a much bigger deal than most people realize. They're not just a company that makes graphics cards for gaming, even though that's what they've become known for. They're selling shovels in a gold rush, providing the infrastructure for the digital age. For that, today, NVIDIA is worth over $1 trillion.
Let's make a choice.
Those are questions of whether a company with a $1.2 trillion market cap is part of a bubble.
Let's land here.
There is no doubt the influence NVIDIA has had on the wider industry. From very nearly going bankrupt in 1995, it's been a remarkable turnaround. In this episode, we explore NVIDIA's extraordinary journey and technical feats to price controversy.
Oh, let's not do that!
And history.
This ain't good, buddy.
A decade of fuzzy TV.
You landed me basically in the middle of hell.
Those of us who grew up in this decade also witnessed the evolution of the personal computer. In the early 90s, rendering a file browser window or chunks of text was about all the graphics that you would need. CPUs were powerful enough for that. Unless you were in the animation or engineering industry, there was no need for complicated graphics. If you wanted that, video game consoles were the answer. But what if there was a separate hardware processor that could easily bring graphics to the personal computing world? Tucked away in sunny California, a trio of engineers, Jensen Huang, Chris Malachowski, and Curtis Pring, were thinking the same thing. They would meet at a local Denny's, where endless cups of coffee fueled their conversations. One of these meetings, the trio noticed something. CPU, which is the heart of the computer, is designed as a general-purpose processor that can only tackle one task at a time, a method known as serial processing. At the time, generating 3D graphics for video games placed tremendous, repetitive map-intensive demands on CPUs. If there was a separate chip that could do parallel processing, it would be a game-changer. In other words, this chip would divide complex tasks into smaller ones and carry them out at the same time. This approach is far more efficient for tasks like rendering 3D graphics, where many calculations can be done at the same time. This new chip wouldn't replace the CPU, but would complement the graphical tasks. This would later be known as a GPU. This idea was the beginning of NVIDIA. It was a simple idea with modern hindsight, but it would revolutionize not only computing, but computer science over the next 20 years. But right now, NVIDIA's focus was on the gaming experience on PCs in the 90s. That market had potential, big potential. So, in 1993, in a condo in Fremont, California, NVIDIA was founded with the idea of applying the use of parallel processing GPUs in home computers. Fun fact, the name NVIDIA is actually the portmanteau NV, short for next version.
Should have never come to help you guys.
This represents the energy, which they hope everyone will feel due to the computing power their chip would generate. Before we continue, let's hear a quick word from today's sponsor, Aura. Every day, countless people are making a fortune by selling your information to robocallers and scammers. They can know a lot about you, including your name requests on your behalf. Brokers are legally required to remove your information if you ask them, but they make it notoriously hard to do. You can let Aura handle that for you. Aura does so much more to protect you and your family from online threats. It's easy to set up, so you don't have to download several different apps to get things like parental controls, antivirus, a VPN, password management, identity theft insurance, and more. You get everything, all at once, at an affordable price. Visit aura.com/coldfusion to get started on a 2-week free trial. Thank you. Alright, back to the video. NVIDIA's founders were top engineers. Jensen Huang, a Taiwanese-American electrical engineer, had a track record as the director of CoreWare at LSI Logic and a microprocessor designer at AMD. Remember the name LSI Logic? This company would prove pivotal to NVIDIA making it off the ground at all. The two other founders were also capable. Chris Malachowski brought engineering expertise from his time at HP and Sun Microsystems, and Curtis Pring was a former graphics chip designer at IBM and Sun Microsystems. Though being a qualified engineer is one thing, but launching a startup is another. This is something that NVIDIA's founders learned firsthand. In fact, at first, they weren't even sure what to do. So, they hired a lawyer to come to one of their meetings in 1993. The first step was incorporating the company. To get the ball rolling, they needed some initial capital to value the company's shares. Jensen Huang had $200 in his pocket, which he handed to the lawyer. This modest sum not only got the company incorporated, but also earned Huang 20% stake in was to get the company funded. This process, however, was not easy. As NVIDIA's founders soon learned, venture capitalists weren't interested in polished business plans. Instead, they banked on their founders' reputation, past success, and a grand vision big enough to be worth the risk. NVIDIA would eventually secure $20 million in funding from Sequoia Capital and Sutter Hill Ventures. To an outsider, this seems absurd. How could a brand new company secure $20 million in funding just like that? In reality, it was Jensen Huang's previous connection to LSI Logic, the company that I mentioned earlier, that made the funding possible. Jensen would reach out to LSI's CEO, who would arrange a meeting with Sequoia Capital. Sequoia had previously invested in LSI Logic, which delivered a record-breaking $150 million return for its IPO.
Be thankful I
Reputation
only killed you.
willing to listen when he came back. First, they were skeptical of investing in a graphic developer, but they eventually took the gamble and invested an initial sum of $2 million, followed by a further $18 million. What I'm going to say next is some key context here. This was a very risky decision. At the time, there were 89 other companies with similar ambitions to NVIDIA. The fact of the matter is, except for AMD and NVIDIA, none of these other companies would survive. When NVIDIA went public in 1999, it was valued at $600 million. So, the risk of the initial investment paid off handsomely, multiplied by 100 times handsomely. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. At this stage in the story, NVIDIA was just a small group of engineers. After receiving funding, it took NVIDIA 2 years to build a team and create their first product, the NV1, which was officially launched in 1995. During the development of the NV1 chip, NVIDIA secured a deal with Sega. This was to manufacture NV1 chips for their gaming console. These chips were intended for games such as Virtua Fighter and Daytona. The thing was, NV1 chips were also available for computers. So that means you could play Sega Saturn games natively on your PC in 1995. For context, the first PlayStation only came out a year earlier. Till this day, I don't think I've seen anything similar done since. It's like if Sony was to build a computer graphics card and you could slot that into your desktop and play PS5 games natively. There was a problem though. NVIDIA chose to use a quadrangle-based image rendering architecture for their NV1 chips, and Sega was not pleased with this. Regardless, NVIDIA's leadership refused to change their decision. So the question is, why did they choose to render polygons and quadratics instead of triangles? Well, that choice is explained in this video by Lazy Game Reviews.
This uses quads, or squares, instead of triangles to speed up rendering by reducing the CPU workload, at least in theory. This results in fewer polygons and renders better rounded objects. So you could actually make things with squares instead of just a bunch of triangles everywhere. And at the time, with a lot lower speeds of CPUs and memory clocks and all that stuff, it made sense to use squares instead of triangles, at least in some situations, to get better rounded objects or models in your game, because triangles, you had more processing power required. Now, as memory got better and better, this made little sense. And it also kind of made little sense at the time, because this meant that there was no support for OpenGL. They didn't even want to include it. I read a statement by NVIDIA and SGS Thompson saying that they didn't think consumers would need OpenGL at all, so they just didn't bother with it. And then by the time Direct3D came along and DirectX, this couldn't do that either, because it didn't support rendering through quads, only through traditional triangles and those types of polygons. They did release a driver or patch for it to update it to run DirectX, but only through software. So you're effectively running a hardware accelerator in software mode to run hardware accelerated DirectX, Direct3D stuff. It made no sense.
Despite the innovation, the project was an abject failure. It was designed to be a jack of all trades, combining 3D graphics, video and audio processing, and a host of other functions into a single chip. As Jensen Huang would later put it, it was an octopus, complicated, multifaceted, and perhaps too ahead of its time. The end result was a failure to capture the market's attention. What the market did want was something much simpler. They wanted a dedicated 3D graphics chip. They didn't want an all-in-one solution like the NV1 chip. Aside from that, it was overpriced compared to the competition. To make matters worse, the wider industry was moving in a different direction. Microsoft had recently introduced DirectX, a new API that favored a triangle-based standard for 3D graphics rendering. It made coding for graphics easier for developers, so they naturally flocked to it. This shift meant that the NV1 chip was incompatible with DirectX. As a result, many existing games suffered from performance issues or were outright unplayable on NVIDIA's new chip. The incompatibility was a significant blow to NVIDIA. Their customer partner, Diamond Multimedia, returned the vast majority of the 250,000 NV1 units they had purchased. They cited poor sales and a lack of game support. This return nearly bankrupted NVIDIA. forcing them to lay off 40 of their 80 employees and leaving them with a stockpile of unsellable chips. In essence, it was a $10 million disaster. Amidst the turmoil, NVIDIA was in the process of developing the NV2 chip for Sega, but it too was based on the same outdated quadrangle architecture. NVIDIA now knew that they had to pivot to survive. Jensen Huang had a major problem here. In a Hail Mary move, he approached Sega's CEO with a request. Let us be released from the contract, but with full payment. NVIDIA desperately needed this money to keep the company afloat. In an act of extraordinary kindness, Sega's CEO agreed to Huang's request. This act of generosity allowed NVIDIA
There's also one under me.
focus and resources towards a path that aligned with the industry's direction. If Sega pulled out their investment at that time, NVIDIA would have ceased to exist. Overall, the NV1's failure became a critical learning experience for NVIDIA. They realized the need to understand customer needs and market trends. This shaped NVIDIA's strategy moving forward. I think it's pretty wild how close NVIDIA came to failing, and now being worth over $1 trillion. Making the decision to listen to the market and focus on PCs was the start of their success. After their initial failure, NVIDIA chose to launch into the PC industry, this time with a straightforward product. The PC market was booming, and all they had to do was lie in wait and pounce at the right time. In 1999, NVIDIA entered the PC graphics market with the GeForce 256 graphics card. This card wasn't just a hit, it transformed the landscape. The first programmable graphics card. It also popularized the term GPU, or graphics processing unit. It allowed both regular gamers and developers to explore new possibilities with shading and lighting effects. This significantly enhanced the gaming experience. As NVIDIA rode this wave of success, the company went public in the same year. By 2000, NVIDIA had secured a major deal to develop graphics hardware for Microsoft's Xbox game console. This deal gave NVIDIA a substantial $200 million advance, far cry from the previous game console effort with Sega. The Xbox would launch in 2001 with a custom console-ready chip called the NV2A. With this success as a launchpad, NVIDIA thrived throughout the 2000s. They played a key role in crafting Sony's PlayStation 3 processors. Massive brands in the computer industry, like Apple, Dell, and HP, started using NVIDIA's GPUs. The company continued to grow from strength to strength. Let's take a look at the strategies and technologies that got them there. One of NVIDIA's most important strategic decisions was to operate as a fabless chip company. So what is a fabless chip company? Well, fabless chip companies design the chips, but they don't physically manufacture them. Jensen Huang, NVIDIA's CEO, was very particular about this decision, a decision to drastically keep costs down. In NVIDIA's case, TSMC
Attention, delivering care package.
Extended sniper mag here. Level 3.
Beginning ring countdown.
Or Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company has been their manufacturing partner for the last 3 decades. TSMC is the world's largest and most advanced semiconductor foundry. It provides manufacturing services for other big chip design companies, including Apple, AMD, Qualcomm, and others. TSMC played a major role in NVIDIA's continuous success, as they have the best manufacturing capabilities on Earth. Jensen Huang knows this well. In his own words, quote, "NVIDIA today would not be here if not for the pioneering work TSMC did." While NVIDIA's manufacturing was outsourced, it's strength to strength. Let's take a look at the strategies and technologies that got them there. One of NVIDIA's most important strategic decisions was to operate as a fabless chip company. So what is a fabless chip company? Well, fabless chip companies design the chips, but they don't physically manufacture them. Jensen Huang, NVIDIA's CEO, was very particular about this decision, a decision to drastically keep costs down. In NVIDIA's case, TSMC, or Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, has been their manufacturing partner for the last 3 decades. TSMC is the world's largest and most advanced semiconductor foundry. It provides manufacturing services for other big chip design companies, including Apple, AMD, Qualcomm, and others. TSMC played a major role in NVIDIA's continuous success, as they have the best manufacturing capabilities on Earth. Jensen Huang knows this well. In his own words, quote, "NVIDIA today would not be here if not for the pioneering work TSMC did." While NVIDIA's manufacturing was outsourced, the company could direct resources to innovation. They began to shift their focus beyond gaming chips and graphics. They realized GPUs and the parallel processing power they possessed could be used for so much more. NVIDIA now sought to give developers the tools and software to harness the full potential of the GPU. In 2006, NVIDIA launched a software toolkit called CUDA. Prior to CUDA, programming a GPU required a lot of tinkering and was a real headache for developers. It involved complex, low-level machine language or APIs, but with CUDA, it became much easier to write programs that could run on GPUs using standard languages, C, C++, and Java. The impact? Many more applications rather
He's
than
hurt
just
bad.
graphics could use parallel processing power. It opened up possibilities for all sectors that required dealing with huge amounts of data. But with CUDA, it became much easier to write programs that could run on GPUs using standard languages like C, C++, and Java. The impact? Many more applications rather than just graphics could use parallel processing power. In this video by Lazy
They didn't think consumers would need
Innovation, the project was an assumption of the 250,000 NV1 units they had purchased. They cited poor sales and a lack of game support. This return nearly bankrupted NVIDIA, forcing them to lay off 40 of their 80 employees and leaving them with a stockpile of unsellable chips. In essence, it was a $10 million disaster. Amidst the turmoil, NVIDIA was in the process of developing the MV2 chip for Sega, but it too was based on the same outdated quadrangle architecture. NVIDIA now knew that they had to pivot to survive. Jensen Huang, had a major problem here. In a Hail Mary move, he approached Sega's CEO with a request. Let us be released from the contract, but with full payment. NVIDIA desperately needed this money to keep the company afloat. In an act of extraordinary kindness, Sega's CEO agreed to Huang's request. This act of generosity allowed NVIDIA to redirect its focus and resources towards the path that aligned with the industry. If Sega pulled out their investment, NVIDIA would have ceased to exist. Overall, The NV1's failure became a critical learning experience for NVIDIA. They realized the need to understand customer needs and market trends. This shaped NVIDIA's strategy moving forward. I think it's pretty wild how close NVIDIA came to failing and now being worth over $1 trillion. Making the decision to listen to the market and focus on PCs was the start of their success. After their initial failure, NVIDIA chose to launch into the PC industry, this time with a straightforward product. The PC market was booming, and all they had to do was lie in wait and pounce at the right time. In 1999, NVIDIA entered the PC graphics market with the GeForce 256 graphics card. This card wasn't just a hit, it transformed the landscape. The first programmable graphics card. It also popularized the term GPU, or graphics processing unit. It allowed both regular gamers and developers to explore new possibilities with shading and lighting effects.
There was someone out there.
This significantly enhanced the gaming experience.
Alright, gotcha.
As NVIDIA rode this wave of success, the company went public in the same year. By 2000, NVIDIA had secured a major deal to develop graphics hardware for Microsoft's Xbox game console. This deal gave NVIDIA a substantial $200 million advance, a far cry from the previous game console effort with Sega. The Xbox would launch in 2001 with a custom console-ready chip called the NV2A. With this success as a launchpad, NVIDIA thrived throughout the 2000s. They played a key role in crafting Sony's PlayStation 3 processors. Massive brands in the computer industry, like Apple, Dell, and HP, started using NVIDIA's GPUs. The company continued to grow from strength to strength. Let's take a look at the strategies and technologies that got them there. One of NVIDIA's most important strategic decisions was to operate as a fabless chip company. So what is a fabless chip company? Well, fabless chip companies design the chips, but they don't physically manufacture them. Jensen Huang, NVIDIA's CEO, was very particular about this decision, a decision to drastically keep costs down. In NVIDIA's case, TSMC, or Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, has been their manufacturing partner for the last 3 decades. TSMC is the world's largest and most advanced semiconductor foundry. It provides manufacturing services for other big chip design companies, including Apple, AMD, Qualcomm, and others. TSMC played a major role in NVIDIA's continuous success, as they have the best manufacturing capabilities on Earth. Jensen Huang knows this well. In his own words, quote, "NVIDIA today would not be here if not for the pioneering work TSMC did." While NVIDIA's manufacturing was outsourced, the company could direct resources to innovation. They began to shift their focus beyond gaming chips and graphics. They realized GPUs and the parallel processing power they possessed could be used for so much more. NVIDIA now sought to give developers the tools and software to harness the full potential of the GPU. In 2006, NVIDIA launched a software toolkit called CUDA. Prior to CUDA, programming a GPU required a lot of tinkering and was a real headache for coders. It involved complex, low-level machine language or APIs, but with CUDA, it became much easier to write programs that could run on GPUs using standard languages like C, C++, and Java. The impact? Many more applications, rather than just graphics, could use parallel processing power. It opened up possibilities for all sectors that required dealing with huge amounts of data. The trend started in 2008 when the Tokyo Institute of Technology used CUDA-accelerated GPUs with their supercomputer, Tsubame 1.01. Since then, many other data centers, such as Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud Platform, and Netflix, have adopted GPUs for various applications.
You're part of the PC master race now, buddy.
Learning, video streaming, and web
Keyboard and mouse
but
for
the
life.
real acceleration came about
This
with
is
the
mine,
AI
actually.
boom.
This is not even mine.
Well, you'll be getting one soon enough.
2012 is the year that many consider the big bang moment for AI. This was
Are you
also
playing
the
on
year
keyboard and
when
mouse, or are you playing on a
innovations could be
controller?
involved in a significant
keyboard and
AI
mouse.
breakthrough. This breakthrough happened. Google Cloud
Did you
Platform
used to play on
and
keyboard and
Netflix
mouse?
have adopted GPUs for various
Never
applications.
in my life. I've only ever played on
These
controller.
include cloud computing, machine
Well,
learning,
maybe
video
start with the
streaming,
game that's a
and
little
web
bit
search.
less
But the real
speedy than
acceleration
this,
came
but
about
you'll
with
love
the AI
playing on
boom.
keyboard and mouse.
Shoot, dude.
2012 is the year that many consider the Big Bang moment for AI.
With the keyboard and
This
mouse,
was
or
also
with
the
the
year
controller?
when NVIDIA's innovations would be involved in a significant AI breakthrough. This breakthrough happened at ImageNet,
Okay.
an annual
I'm
global
getting sniped
competition
at
where
from
teams
along
from
the way.
around the world
From where?
compete
That's straight
to see how well
east.
their software
Straight
can
east.
recognize objects as
I'm
beings
just
and
peeking
images.
back.
Alex Krzyzewski, a
Way out
PhD
there.
student at the University of Toronto at the time, participated in the competition with a novel approach. He leveraged the power of GPUs to enhance the computing efficiency of his deep learning neural network, AlexNet. Deep learning is the process where computers can learn by themselves without the help of programs. By connecting two NVIDIA GeForce GTX 5080 gaming cards to his computer, Krzyzewski was able to process AlexNet's neural network with 1.2 million images. The result was remarkable at the time. The image recognition accuracy showed a 15% error rate, down from 25% the year before.
We could play trios.
It's laughable today. Tools like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and even Google Lens can do that now with much more accuracy. But back then, it was revolutionary. It was this event, called the AI winter. After decades of experts accepting that neural networks would never be practical, this proved them wrong. The NVIDIA GeForce GTX 580 cards were significant because they were optimized for CUDA, which of course allows for the implementation of parallel algorithms. They were crucial for deep learning tasks performed by AlexNet AI. Now the door had been swung wide open for many possibilities.
We should
in
probably
deep learning
move while we
applications,
can.
and NVIDIA was ready for it. The strategic time and investment into CUDA and the software ecosystem around it was paying off. NVIDIA's GPUs are now the de facto standard for training and deploying generative AI and large language models. For example, OpenAI, renowned for ChatGPT, uses A100 series GPUs, and this is for the rapid and widespread deployment of their AI models. After ChatGPT burst into the scene in November 2022, all of the major tech companies, hoping to jump on the AI hype, scrambled to get their hands on NVIDIA's GPUs. The A100 GPUs were especially flying off the shelf. Microsoft alone was using a whopping 10,000 of them. One single A100 unit would cost $10,000.
I'm gonna get up and around and go
selling
through this
hundreds
ledge.
of thousands of units.
I don't think going
Yeah.
straight
As a
into
result
that
of this
fight.
frenzy,
I was actually thinking
NVIDIA's
that exact
sales
same thing.
soared to $13.5 billion in the quarter ending July 2023. That's a staggering 101% increase from the year before. May 25th, their stock obtained $184 billion in market value in just one day. And finally,
actually
on
just
May
hang
30th,
out right here on the edge.
2023, NVIDIA became the 6th company in the
Rat
world
on someone
to
as
reach
they
that
come
magic
by.
$1 trillion market cap, joining the likes of Apple, Microsoft,
Okay.
Amazon, Alphabet, and Tesla. At the time of writing, in December 2023, the company is worth $1.15 trillion.
Looks like a
NVIDIA's
care package
impact
is
on the
coming.
Try to
healthcare
smoke a
industry
bowl
is
while I
also
play.
noted. In 2022, a genomic sequencing technique by NVIDIA set a Guinness World Record for the fastest DNA sequencing, completing the feat in 5 hours and 2 minutes. NVIDIA has impacted further fields. The Tegra chips, once designed for mobile phones, drive major e-commerce operations in self-driving cars. Tesla used those chips to power their Model 3 from 2016 to 2019. Tesla now uses its own chips, but NVIDIA provides semi-autonomous driving technologies for other automakers like Mercedes-Benz.
Sniper.
So how is such a company run? How were pivots made so quickly to serve so many sectors with 1/10 the employees of Microsoft? Let's take a quick detour into NVIDIA's management staff, as I think it's quite interesting. Jensen Huang, CEO, manages a team of 40 directly, and he believes in the power of a flat organizational structure. There's no exclusive meetings with just VPs or directors. Anyone can
Told you there
join
was
the
gonna be
team.
someone.
No career advice sessions
Dude,
either,
yeah, I told you I was
because,
gonna
as
get
Huang puts it, his management team has already aced it. He also opts for a more dynamic approach by encouraging anyone in the company to shoot him their, quote, top 5 things on the fly. When it comes to information flow, everyone is in the know at all times. This ensures that information slips around quickly. There's no planning cycle, such as a grand 5-year or
Holy
plan.
fuck! There was
It's all
another
about
team.
being
I didn't even
agile
see that
and
coming.
adapting to the ever-evolving business and market conditions, especially in the rapidly changing field of AI. Jensen also has an eye for top-notch talent and keeping the team lean. Though, amidst the
Dude, I gotta
post-COVID
kill
economic slump, major
Good
tech
luck, my
giants like
friend. Good
Facebook,
luck.
Amazon, and
Thank
Google
you, I appreciate
You're on your way to
dismissed thousands of
greatness.
workers. In contrast, Nvidia pledged to avoid layoffs or salary reductions, promising raises for staff instead. Since their layoff disaster in 1995 with the Sega chip, Nvidia's internal operations in regards to this has changed drastically. An example of this was in 2008 when Nvidia's Tegra chip failed. Nvidia was hoping to enter the mobile industry and created the Tegra smartphone. Snapdragon chip. As a side, there was actually a Tegra-powered Android tablet called the Asus Transformer. I had one of these back in the day, and I found the performance to be pretty underwhelming. Many others must have thought so too, because the chip failed to gain traction and flopped. A team of more than 1,000 engineers were responsible for the development of the Tegra series. Instead of getting rid of them after the chip's failure, Jensen retained the team and encouraged them to explore new avenues. That team later collaborated with NVIDIA's existing automotive unit, and together, they would create chips for self-driving cars. So we've touched on a lot of what NVIDIA's involved in and what they've been doing, but there's still one key sector that we need to talk about, their original focus, gaming. Although NVIDIA has diversified, they have not totally abandoned the gaming market. GPUs are still at the core of their business. In 2018, NVIDIA launched the RTX series of graphics cards, popularizing a technology called ray tracing. Ray tracing is a demanding technique that simulates the paths of light. It creates more realistic shadows, reflections, and effects. Previously, this usually wasn't a real-time effect. It was only mainstream within the 3D art and animation sectors. In Jensen Huang's view, ray tracing was only possible because of NVIDIA's research in physics simulation and artificial intelligence. He explains that NVIDIA uses AI to generate 7 out of 8 pixels in a scene based on one ray-traced pixel. It's like a jigsaw where the AI fills in the missing pieces. NVIDIA also popularized AI upscaling of video games in real time, a process called DLSS. In theory, it allows for sharper, higher resolution games without the computational load. But in all of this, there's been an issue with NVIDIA's GPUs. And now we get into the controversies. The year is 2018, and the crypto mining boom is at its height. Miners rushed out to buy as many GPUs as they could to make some cash. As a result, demand for GPUs went through the roof, and the supply dried up for those who normally use them, that is, gamers. Prices soared by upwards of 71% in some cases. Amidst this surge, NVIDIA's gaming revenue increased by 26% to $1.65 billion. NVIDIA would tout that the initial 2018 growth in revenue was caused by the gaming market, and they downplayed the effects of the crypto boom, the real cause of the revenue boost. With this wording, investors' ability to accurately evaluate the company's performance was compromised. Their unknowingly risky investments eventually crashed, along with the crypto crash. This incident attracted the attention of the US Securities and Exchange Commission, and NVIDIA was charged with unlawfully shrouding information. NVIDIA would settle in 2022 by paying a $5.5 million penalty, and it didn't admit any guilt or wrongdoing, but they did agree to improve their revenue source disclosures. In response to this, in 2021, NVIDIA decided to introduce a dedicated cryptocurrency mining processor, or CMP line. This was supposedly to address the shortage in gaming cards. But at $4,300 per CMP, crypto miners would just rather buy regular gaming graphics cards. Jensen Huang is the only CEO of a tech giant who has been at the helm since the company's inception. It's been 30 years, and his long and successful leadership has also attracted some criticism over the years. One of the most controversial aspects of his management style is his relentless pursuit of profit, which sometimes borders on greed. After being fined by the SEC, the lack of transparency left many investors feeling misled. And aside from this, the gaming community in particular is not thrilled for shelving out so much for their graphics cards. There's an unmissable chatter online, conveying that NVIDIA cards are just too overpriced, especially in the mid-range sector, where AMD are more competitive. Notable incident that brought Huang's business ethics into question was the 2022 fallout with EVGA. EVGA was a key partner in producing NVIDIA's GPUs. They chose to sever ties with NVIDIA and withdraw from the GPU market. This decision, according to EVGA's CEO, Andrew Hahn, was rooted in principle, stemming from NVIDIA's unsatisfactory communication about contentious pricing strategies. Such controversies have cast a shadow over Huang's leadership, challenging the integrity of his profit-driven approach. Maybe to emphasize the challenges, Huang recently stated in an interview that if he was allowed to go back in time, he would choose to not relive this career path. Starting and running a company the size of NVIDIA was a headache. He says that he faced many struggles and hardships as an entrepreneur, all the way from laying off those employees with the NV1 chip back in 1995 to competing with bigger rivals and dealing with the constant pressure of uncertainty. In his view, nobody in their right mind would want to endure that pressure.
If you were magically 30 years old again today, in 2023, and you were going to Denny's with your two best friends who are the two smartest people you know, and you're talking about starting a company, what are you talking about starting?
I would do it. I know. And the reason for that is really quite simple. Ignoring the company that we would start. First of all, I'm not exactly sure. The reason why I would do it, and it goes back to why it's so hard, is building a company and building a video turned out to have been a million times harder than I expected it to be. Any of us expected it to be. And at that time, if we realized the pain and suffering and just how vulnerable you're going to feel, and the challenges that you're going to endure, the embarrassment and the shame, and the list of all the things that go wrong, I don't think anybody would start a company. Nobody in their right mind would do it. And I think that's NVIDIA has seen massive growth over the past 2 years. They were just in the right place at the right time. The share price has increased by 220% in the last year, and revenue growth 206%. But will it last? Opinions are split. There are two main viewpoints. One is that AI will continue to be a massive industry, and it's only just getting started. This viewpoint believes that NVIDIA will keep riding this wave. They're currently going all in on AI research, publishing paper after paper that are complete bangers. The other view is that this growth is unsustainable. As it turns out, NVIDIA isn't going to be the only player in the GPU/AI hardware space. Both Amazon and Microsoft are looking to make their own custom-based chips. On the desktop computing space, Microsoft has entered the arena with their Arc series. AMD is also gaining ground. Furthermore, NVIDIA's heavy reliance on Taiwan-based TSMC for its semiconductor chip production may prove problematic. This is due to China's increased military pressure on Taiwan. But this isn't just for NVIDIA, but for the entire global semiconductor supply chain. There are now more threats in this chip space to NVIDIA today than there have been in many years, so we'll need to wait and see what happens. So there you have it, the NVIDIA story so far. It's been quite a journey, so I hope that you found it enjoyable and picked up some new insights. Currently, NVIDIA is riding on an all-time high, but whether this is a pivotal trend or a bubble remains to be seen. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Do you have an NVIDIA card? And what's your opinion on the company? Positive, neutral, or negative? Are you surprised by the amount of things they have their hands in? Feel free to discuss in the comment section below. Alright, so that's about it from me. Thanks for watching. My name is Dagogo, and you've been watching Cold Fusion, and I'll see you again soon for the next episode. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.
We got people on our ass.
A new Monmouth University poll finds let's keep it real, we already knew about American sentiment toward Congress. Now, specifically, this Monmouth University poll looked into how Americans feel about congressional leadership, and the results are damning, to say the least. So let's start with, the overall opinion of Congress. The opinion of the job the United States Congress is doing stands at its worst mark in more than a year. Only 17% of Americans approve. A whopping 77% of Americans correctly disapprove of the job Congress is doing. And that makes a lot of sense to me when you consider what Congress spends most of their time engaging in. If they're not fundraising for their campaigns or trading individual stocks based on insider information that the general public is not privy to, what they're spending their time doing is engaging in theater. Political theater in the form of congressional hearings. They pass non-binding resolutions, just a virtue signal to their constituents, without actually passing legislation to improve the lives of their constituents. And Americans aren't stupid. I really do believe in the intelligence of our fellow Americans, and they see what's going on, they see it clearly, which is why 77% of them look at Congress and say, no, I reject, I disapprove.
Yeah, so these numbers have been headed down for a long
You want to go take that zip line?
It's not an accident. It's because of money in politics. And so I wrote about this in my book.
Dude, I'm fucking those kids up. Why are you guys not down here fighting them?
Democratic Party to corporate donors.
I down one, crack the other one. What the fuck are y'all doing, bro?
In the first place. So,
Oh, we were hitting them too, buddy.
We're fucking garbage.
And so they all started serving corporations, and then we stopped.
So are y'all, apparently.
$7.25. It's so comically low. It's ridiculous. It's $15,000 a year every single day, Monday through Friday, right? So now.
Yeah, that's why you didn't go in there.
But
I took one down. What did you do?
Got used to this, and they don't understand. They don't really believe it.
Did you not hear what I just said, you fucking retard?
That's true.
I said I killed one and cracked one, and you guys just stood up there on the fucking ramp and did nothing.
Giant ass-kissing operation.
Oh,
the more powerful you are, the more people kiss your ass.
Yeah, nothing. Okay.
Leaves a sense in the air of like, oh, everybody must love the powerful. Oh my God, if it's a senator, everybody's like, oh my God, it's a senator walking by, and they think like a senator is like the greatest thing in the world, right? But the rest of the country that's outside of that bubble looks at it and goes, I hate those guys. I can't stand those guys. And the more establishment they are, the more they hate. And there's one party has been smart enough, let's be honest, to wake up to this phenomenon. And that's the Republicans. And that is why they're at least pretending to be populists. Whereas the Democratic Party is like, what? Everybody loves Congress, don't they? Everybody loves the establishment, right? Let's give them Hillary Clinton. Let's give them Joe Biden. Guys, people who've been in politics for 50, 60, 240 years. They're gonna love it. No, they're not. Look at the numbers.
No, I disagree a little bit. I think the difference between Democratic lawmakers and Republican lawmakers is that, while I think both sides are totally dishonest, with Republicans, they at least try to put on a show as if they're understanding and loving toward their constituents, that they want to serve their constituents. Whereas the feel that I get from the Democratic Party is that they despise their constituents. They can't stand them, they loathe them, and they really struggle to hold back how much they loathe them. I think a good example, honestly, is some of the recent public statements that John Fetterman's been making in regard to some factions of the Democratic voters, who, by the way, worked really hard to get him elected.
He's the one insulting them the most now.
Yes.
Because the minute you get into Washington, it's super comfortable. Okay, and all of a sudden, Fetterman, Mr. Populist Hero, is the #1 protector of the establishment now. So congrats. Well played, actor Fetterman, okay? But look, the rest of us see you. But Anna, I don't disagree with you, and that's part of the point that I'm making. The Republicans are no better. In fact, they're worse in the sense that they're the ones who gave the giant tax cuts for the rich over and over again, cut corporate taxes to the bone, and are promising to do it again, and maybe cut your Social Security and Medicare. So I understand that they're fake populists, but at least they're pretending, especially on social issues, that they care about their base, and they get the concept that people hate Washington. So they'll be like, oh, drain the swamp, oh, we hate Washington. And then they'll actually help the people in power, but at least they're savvy enough to pretend. Whereas the Democrats are like, oh, we don't need our stinking voters. No, you love the establishment. People love it, and you should love it. Oh, you saying something against a politician?
Yeah.
Oh, deban them, cancel them, how dare they? Censure. Okay.
What they lean into come election time, re-election season, is honestly hitting you over the head with, if you don't get us re-elected, then the other guy's going to win. The other guy's dangerous. The other guy's terrible. That's what they resorted to, and it's pathetic.
Sorry, I was back in a bowl.
Let's talk about congressional leadership and how, well, voters in both parties, how they feel about congressional leadership. Let's begin with Republicans in the Senate. So in the Senate, you have the Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, and boy, are things looking terrible for him. So the U.S. Senate's Republican Minority Leader Mitch McConnell earns the lowest overall rating. 6% approve and 60% disapprove, and that's among American adults in general. But the number's even worse when you specifically focus on Republicans. Only 10% of Republicans approve of Mitch McConnell, 41% disapprove.
Yeah, no, here I'm going to do something ironic. I'm going to give Republican voters tremendous credit. So, why? Because they caught on even before Democratic voters that their corporate wing is full of crap. And that the most of the party is the corporate wing. And the leader of the party, Mitch McConnell, in the Senate and Congress overall, is the most full of it. And so, now guys, I can prove my point perfectly. Mitch McConnell has taken $1 billion from corporate PAC money, right, and donations overall from lobbyists, etc. Nancy Pelosi has taken the same amount. If you tell Republican voters now, hey, I think that $1 billion might be legalized bribes to affect Mitch McConnell to do the things that his donors want rather than what his voters want, huge percentage of Republican voters will now go, of course, yeah, that's totally true, even though he's the leader of their party in the Senate. If you tell Democratic voters the same thing about Nancy Pelosi, they'll rip your head off. And they'll be deeply offended. They'll be like, what do you mean? Mitch McConnell's the bad guy. And when he takes the same exact money as Pelosi, he's evil. But when Pelosi takes it, she takes it with the best of intentions. And all of her votes that agree with Mitch McConnell and that agree with her donors are all a coincidence. And she's a master legislator that we revere. A historic figure.
Yeah.
No, ridiculous.
And look, the thing with Mitch McConnell is he's still very much a neocon and presents himself as a neocon. But the Republican voters have moved on from that. And so really what you're seeing is this tension among Republicans with the old guard, which is much more representative of the neocons, the hawkish individuals who have never met a war they didn't love, and the, I guess, new guard of the, you know, more MAGA era Republicans. They have their faults. I'm not pretending like they're
great. They have a lot of faults, but this is not among them.
This is not among them, right? Exactly. So now let's move on to the Democratic side. Senate Majority Leader, I should say, Chuck Schumer, his overall approval rating is only 21%, 41% disapprove. But then when you boil it down to Democrats specifically, shockingly, 48% of Democrats approve.
That's what I'm saying. It's not shocking. Because the other thing you have to give credit, and I've never given credit to the right media, anything, ever, okay, because they're just massive liars. But here, first time for everything, they have been talking accurately about how much of a sellout Mitch McConnell and other corporate Republicans are. Sometimes inaccurately. Sometimes they'll blame him for being woke or some insane thing like that. But on overall, they're beginning to talk about the donors. The Koch brothers have turned on Trump. So the Trump wing has turned on the Koch brothers and saying, hey, look at these dirty donors who are basically bribing everyone. That is true, right? But on the Democratic side, if you ever say about Chuck Schumer that he might be corrupt too as he takes all this corporate money, MSNBC will annihilate you. CNN will be offended. New York Times will be offended. They'll all say that, no, you're terrible. They'll try to run you out of the party. But now they've run so many people out of the party, there's not enough people left to win elections.
So let's look at House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Again, when you look at his overall approval rating, according to this Monmouth University poll, 21% approve and 22% disapprove. But among Democrats, 45% approve and 6% disapprove.
Because no one in any form of media other than progressive media has ever said an unkind word about Hakeem Jeffries. No one has ever mentioned all the corporate donations that not only that he takes, but that he funnels to other Democrats. No one has ever mentioned all the bills that he has blocked behind the scenes that were theoretical Democratic priorities that he never lifted a finger to try to help pass. All of this is totally covered up by mainstream media and anything that leans Democratic. And so, unfortunately, the Democratic voters are kind of in the same bubble that Republican voters are about the election. They think that the Republican voters think the 2020 election, they have completely wrong information, and they think Trump actually won when he didn't. There's no evidence of that. And Democratic voters think Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer are angels, and that they don't take dark money or corporate PAC money or help their donors. That's not remotely true. They do take all that money, and they do help their donors, and we've shown you dozens of examples in other episodes about that. So Democratic voters, I love you, but you got to get better. Wake up to what's actually happening, not just in the opposing party, but in your own party too.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, us listening. Still, hit the join button below.
Hey everybody, it's Lon Side, and we're taking a look today at another high-performance mini PC. This one is coming from Minisforum. This is their Elite Mini UM780, and it is powered by a Ryzen 7840HF processor. It does pretty well in some areas, but not in others. We're going to take a closer look at what this little mini PC is all about in just a second, but I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, this came in free of charge from the manufacturer. However, all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. No one is paying for this review, nor has anyone reviewed or approved what you're about to see before it was uploaded. Let's get into it now and see what this mini PC is all about. Now, the price point on this one at the moment is $623 as configured, but they often run promotions that bring the price down, so shop around a bit on it. I also think there is a bare bones version of this that does not have storage or memory. Now, as I mentioned at the outset, this unit has a Ryzen 7840HF processor, an 8-core chip. You'll see it performs quite well for gaming and other tasks. It has 32 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM, and a little bit earlier we did a teardown of the unit to see what was inside. The top layer there comes off just with a magnet, but you do have to unscrew the light that I'll show you in a second. We've got crystal RAM and a Kingston SSD, and there are 2 RAM sticks in there. So this one has 2 5 sticks. You can bring this up to 64 gigabytes if you want, and you definitely want to do that in pairs to get the dual channel memory going on. Now, if you look below the NVMe, you'll see there's a second NVMe slot in there. Both of these slots are PCI Express 4, and you could add a second hard drive if you want, but this also supports OcuLink, which is a way of connecting external devices to the PCI Express bus. And there is a port here above the HDMI, and in the box you will find this little adapter card that will slide into that second NVMe slot and align with this port. OcuLink is being used for external GPUs and other PCI Express devices because it connects directly to the bus and might be a little more efficient than USB 4 or Thunderbolt, especially for external GPUs. And we'll talk a little bit about the USB 4 performance on here, so you may want to figure out a way to make use of that slot if you want to add a GPU to it in the future. Now, while we're on the here we've got USB-A ports. Both of these are 3.2 Gen 2 ports. They run at 10 gigabits per second. You have a display port out. You have your HDMI out here. You've got the OcuLink that we mentioned earlier. You also have dual 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. And right now I have the machine connected to my multi-gigabit network, and if we jump over to my speed test app here, you can see how those Ethernet ports perform. And in my testing, they seem to give me the full bandwidth here that I would expect. So we're getting 2.3 here on the downstream, and accounting for overhead, that is pretty good. And you'll see the upstream here in a second when it cycles the test. And what's nice is that you have 2 of these Ethernet ports. These are Realtek ports, in case you're wondering, for Linux compatibility. And the performance here looks pretty good on those. It also has killer Wi-Fi. Unfortunately, though, the Wi-Fi does not perform as well. I ran a test a little bit earlier, and I could not get the Wi-Fi to perform where most of my other Wi-Fi 6 devices perform down here. So as you can see, we're dropping off quite a bit. It then rallies and kind of pumps back up again, but I could not crack about 400 megabits per second on the downstream. Typically, I get over 700 megabits per second off my Wi-Fi 6 access point down here. I did try to adjust some of the killer Wi-Fi features in the control panel. I could not get a better score than what you just saw there. So unfortunately, the Wi-Fi performance is a bit off, but the Ethernet here feels just fine. Now, unlike some of the other mini PCs we tested recently, you cannot power this over the USB port. You do need to use the included power supply. It's actually a pretty nice little power supply here, 120 watts in a very small form factor, and this of course sits separate from the computer. The TDP on this for the processor is 65 watts by default, and you can switch it up to 70 watts through the performance mode setting in the BIOS, and that's what I set mine to for this review. And as you'll see in a few minutes, the processor performance is quite nice on here. On the front, you've got two more of these USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports, another USB 4 port, a reset button, a headphone microphone jack here, and then, of course, your power button. And that is it. Now, on the top here, you'll notice we've got this tiger getting projected through the top of the case. And if we pop this off here real quick, it's held on by Denver.
Do you know how to do movement?
There's just a big diffused LED light here. And you can actually take this thing out and replace it with something else. So if I pop it out here, you'll see that it's just a solid color. And apparently you could probably make your own. They did offer to send me a custom one, but I declined that offer. So there's possibilities to maybe customize the look here a little bit. You can turn this off if you don't like it through the BIOS still if it's bothering you. Now, as far as mounting is concerned, they do give you a VESA mount in the box so you can mount it on the back of a monitor. They also give you a stand that will allow this to sit off of the table kind of at an angle. Looks pretty cool, but I think it works just fine flat here on the desk too, but it's nice to have some mounting options. So now let's talk about the USB 4 ports. As you saw, there's a USB 4 port here on the front and another on the back. These do support video output, so you can get a total of 4 displays.
I don't see anyone out there. What are you talking about?
2 through the USB 4 ports, and then 1 through the display port, and another one through the HDMI. These are rated to be 40 gigabit USB 4 ports, so they should be compatible with Thunderbolt devices.
I'm blind.
This external hard drive that I have here. This is a Samsung
You're deaf and
X5,
dumb.
and I've got my Thunderbolt cable connected to it. Unfortunately, when I run a speed test on this, even with write caching enabled, I'm not getting the performance that I should get out of this drive. So although 1.7 gigabytes per second out of a portable drive is pretty good, this drive on the reads should be getting us 2.5 gigabytes per second on the reads and around 2 gigabytes per second on the writes, and it's just not getting there with these ports. So I think we're not quite getting the performance that we should out of a 40 gigabit per second USB 4 port. So while the USB and the Wi-Fi don't perform as well as I would like, there are some things to like about this machine's performance. First is the speed of that internal SSD we looked at earlier. As you can see here on my little Blackmagic speed test, we're getting 3.3 gigabytes per second on writes and 3.6 gigabytes per second on reads. And that's with only one drive installed. You could go RAID 0 and have 2 drives working in tandem and get even better performance out of it. So I was very pleased with the speed of the reads and writes here on the internal drive. It's also more than adequate for basic business tasks. So if you're doing a lot of stuff in a web browser throughout the day, like QuickBooks and other web applications, this is going to be fine. As you can see here, browsing the web, everything is super fast and responsive here as we browse the NASA.gov homepage. So all that basic business stuff is going to be just fine here. If not, maybe even a little bit of overkill given the fact that there are less expensive mini PCs that perform equally well. Also of note here, I'm running this display at 4K 60. A little bit earlier, I also booted up some YouTube video. This is a 4K 60 frames per second video from my Extras channel. I did drop a couple of frames here and there, nothing all that noticeable, and playback was just fine for streaming video. Now, on the BrowserBench.org speedometer benchmark test, we got a score of 404, and that puts this machine pretty much at the top of the list for web browsing performance. Now, I booted up DaVinci Resolve a little bit earlier to see how it handles 4K 60 frames per second video editing. It actually did pretty well here. As you can see, that transition rendered without any lag in real time. I was able to drop in another one here, and it also did quite well. So if you're doing basic video editing, the kinds of stuff that I do here on this channel, this actually is going to be just fine with that. What's nice about this machine is that you do have the option to add in an external...
Yo, I think we should bail back this way.
Much higher end video editing with that separate graphics processor, and that's one great use case for that Optimum port. Now, as far as gaming is concerned, it did quite well. The processor inside of this is very similar to the new Z1 processor that we're seeing on some of the PC handhelds from Lenovo and from Asus. So we're getting very similar performance out of it. So this is Red Dead Redemption 2. We're running this at 1080p at the lowest settings. Now, it's getting between 55 and 60 frames per second. It was mostly hovering in the 55 frames per second territory, but of course certainly very playable. And if you don't mind dropping down to 30 frames per second, you could actually boost up the visual quality on it. This game ran quite nicely.
One
You
hit,
see a
one
little
hit.
screen tearing there. That's because I capture at only 30 frames per second. We also ran Doom Eternal. This also ran very nicely. This thing usually runs pretty quick as is. 1080p at the lowest settings, we were getting around 85 frames per second, give or take, which is great. It did drop down in some areas, but mostly it was above 60, so a very good Doom Eternal experience. And then, of course, we have No Man's Sky. This was running at 1080p at the lowest settings. They call those standard settings in this game. And here we were getting about 70 to 75 frames per second. This game does vary up quite a bit, given the fact that it's all procedurally generated and it's got scenes on the ground, scenes in space, but overall a very playable experience here with those lower settings. So this
I can hear you if you
is a
get to
little
me.
gaming machine, and I would put its performance kind of close to what you might get out of an Xbox Series S. You're not going to get a lot of detail in the graphics at high frame rates, but the games that you do play on it are quite playable. I do think some of the newer games that are coming out now, like Starfield, are going to be a little bit harder to run on these devices, but there's a vast library of games that should run quite nicely on here, including a lot of what you'll find on Microsoft Game Pass. And on the 3D Mark Time Spy benchmark test, we got a score of 3,197. That puts this machine pretty much in line with what we saw out of the similarly equipped B-Link SER7. So all in, it's performing as expected. You can also see how this stacks up against the Lenovo Legion Go that has one of those AMD V1 Extreme processors. Also of note is the Lenovo Legion there at the bottom. This was a 15-inch gaming laptop with a 1050 Ti GPU that I reviewed just a few years ago. So it's pretty amazing what we're able to get now out of a single chip on a mini PC. And on the 3D Mark stress test, we got a passing grade of 98%, which means that you won't see all that much of a performance drop-off when the computer is placed under heavy load for a sustained period of time. It does, of course, have a cooling fan on board, but it is rather large, and you don't hear it all that much. It won't come on at all when you're just running your web browser or sitting idle at your desktop here. When a game is running, you certainly hear the fan a little bit, but it's not a wind tunnel. It's actually a pretty quiet fan, all things considered. So it does handle its thermals quite nicely. And a little bit earlier, we tested some Linux on it with the latest version of Ubuntu, and all of the hardware was detected properly. That includes the audio, the display, the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, and of course the Ethernet. And all in, it was a very nice Linux experience here, in addition to what we experienced on Windows. So we do have some flexibility in operating systems, and it's nice that you've got two hard drive slots inside, essentially, that you could use to have different operating systems running. So altogether, pretty nicely performing machine here. I do hope they maybe can figure out a BIOS update or something that can improve its USB and Wi-Fi performance, but beyond that, it is a nicely performing Ryzen Mini PC. I'm looking forward to seeing what the new year brings, because we're starting to see a lot more of these high performers out there that are not all that expensive comparatively. That's going to do it for now.
Get up to my right.
Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Brian Parker, Budley, Hot Sauce and Video Games, Green, On the Ground. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/support to learn more.
Well, these guys come around the edge on us.
And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/F.
Hey, boy, are we going into the adult? I'm kidding. Actually, we're not doing that. We're a family-friendly channel here at Some Ordinary Gamer. The moment that I have to show the old starfish to the internet is the moment that, boy, I have tremendously fell off in a way that I could not even perceive. Ladies and gentlemen, talking about showing starfishes and body parts. Obviously, I'm referring to Twitch TV. What other site do you think I was talking about? Now, last week, it, and my timetable screwed up. Twitch implements the artistic nudity policy, which I'm not joking with you, on a flight to the other
You're
side
welcome.
of the
Let's
country.
go. Are you trying to go in that way?
They reversed it within a day. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to start off by reading about their policy update. Now, this is actually very old, almost 10 days at this point. So you might be wondering, why am I covering it now? And I'll get to that, because even though that these policies have been reversed, Twitch finally has a brand new meta. Basically, you can show your body with black little sensor bars all around you, and that's basically how the community is turning the site kind of into a softcore website, but also trying to skirt those community guidelines to the point where everyone around is just kind of cringing looking at it. But let's go into it. So again, looking at the content policy update, what the author, Dane Clancy, CEO of Twitch, by the way, said, we updated our policy, okay? Our primary goal in these updates is to make our guidelines easier to understand and enforce. I would say those were your two objectives, policies, you failed. But anyways, one of the reasons they did it was they wanted to change how fictionalized nudity works, through user voice and in conversation.
I can hear you if you get back to me.
Content policies were limited. In making this update, we were trying to be responsive to these requests and allow the private artist community on Twitch to utilize the human form in their art, and use the human form they did. The amount of fox cocks that I saw in one day did not exist, alright? I haven't even seen that much fox dick on what is the other side? The DeviantArt, okay? And that like literally is called DeviantArt, okay? Like, you don't expect deviancy on DeviantArt, you are not. Anyway, later on in this policy, they reversed it, and they said a great deal of new content was allowed on
Oh, no way.
much of the content creation has been met with community concern. Yeah, there are concerns we share. Upon reflection, we have decided that we went too far with this change.
Scrappy
Digital
DP says,
depictions of nudity present a
GG.
unique challenge. AI can be used to create realistic images, and it can be hard to distinguish between digital art and photography. Really? We're talking about AI porn now? Wasn't there a huge backlash on the website involving like a massive Twitch streamer who literally was caught engaging in the purchasing
Don't show that shit.
of their fellow peers?
Just
So you just
shaming
found that out
him.
now, Dad? You just found out that AI nudies exist? Wow! Welcome to 2023!
Okay, we don't need to be all crazy like that.
So anyways, they talk about the video games, but my favorite part of this, and this is what I want to get tattooed onto my body. While I wish we could have predicted this outcome, part of our job is to make adjustments that serve the community. Bro, you don't have to be Nostradamus to figure that out. Come on. Who's working there? Who's working at the... Guys, do we need to get the crystal balls out? Do we need to get the tarot cards? Do we need... This is basic knowledge, okay? Ouija boards will just tell you not to do this if you just engage with them for 5 minutes. I mean, seriously, how you did not think that the artistic nudity policy could be abused is beyond me. But obviously, we knew that the art category broke records, and that's pretty much how it came down. So, in recent days, Twitch has decided, or at least some Twitch streamers, that there's going to be a new implied nudity meta, so to speak.
A meta effectively is, again, just a strategy to maximize your Twitch stream's growth. So in this case, these two streamers...
No,
and
a meta is just a category.
But they are
Let's be honest.
completely naked
It's a
with
trendy
black bars.
category.
Now, sometimes there is a bra being worn, but you wouldn't be able to tell because, you know, generally there's no visible straps, no underwear. It's just black bars, okay? Like, it's like looking at a Sims character is the best way to put it, you know? And again, you can pay to have your name show up on the titties, on the pussy, okay?
What the
Yeah, I don't
fuck?
care about the yellow dollar sign today. I don't care. I mean, it is what it is. Sometimes you just gotta tell the truth like it is. So obviously, I would say a grand majority of viewers looked at this and said, this doesn't seem like it belongs on a website that, by the way, if we just quickly go over to Twitch's safety articles here, Twitch is a live streaming service designed for people aged 13 and up. Really? 13 and up? So in one fell swoop, they basically turned their website into like Chatterbait, okay? Into like My Free Can. Or I don't know, any website of that vein. That's effectively what has went on. Now to give you an idea, it's been a few days, and while this kind of content has, in my opinion, lessened a little bit, it's not gone all the way through. Now this is a brand new virtual machine, a VM, okay? Running through VPN's brand new system, that my recommendations, as filthy as they are, cannot possibly affect this. Going to Twitch TV's Just Chatting section, which by far is the most popular section of Twitch, a lot of the streams are pretty okay. And then one tiny scroll down, you've got the sexual content policy change. Literally going topless, still on the internet. Now, I find it so hilarious that you can have AI Jesus right here giving you the fine words, but then triple the view count just below. You got twerk off, no ads. Oh yeah. Now, one of the things about Twitch is, okay, I get it, all right? I'm not opposed to twerking. Twerking's pretty cool, but when it comes to 18 plus videos as streamed here, why is there no actual age gating whatsoever? So here I'm not even signed in, I'm completely off. I click on this stream right here, it tells me, oh shit, hey listen, this might not be appropriate for you to watch because it contains sexual themes. So now you hit start watching, boy, it's just an amalgamation of booty shaking, that's all it is. Now, again, it's not even a streamer here booty shaking, it's just some guy with an anime profile picture downloading twerking images off the internet and just posting them here. Now, of course, the people here with the actual, like, amazing chat right here, hot moms, you know, they're out there donating their money or whatever down the road, too. So, again, there's no proper age gating, and there's genuinely, you know, like, underage children potentially being exposed to some wild shit here. Thank God Family Guy is over here. That's all we needed. You know, if you get rid of Family Guy on Twitch, I literally have no reason to put the site in. Jesus Christ. Now, in some of these streams, you know, one of these top posts are their social links, which always goes to Linktree, which, again, scares the crap out of me, because every time I see a Linktree, there it is. Another OF gets dropped into it. So, for a site that is marketed to 13 years of age, there's no proper age gating. The kids can easily click on this, go to the social link up top, and get right to the OnlyFans. And at least in OnlyFans situations over here, they have proper age gating, because OnlyFans does not even allow you to use their product for free tier without a credit card. And again, that's something Twitch could probably implement if they have these 18 plus streams. Like, hey, sign into an account that has a credit card attached to it, and then, hey, we'll just believe you're an adult. Because generally, that's a very good filter. There's only one way to go really proving anybody's age, and that's if you start requesting IDs, which I don't think any website should necessarily do. But that's where we're sitting at. So the whole point of this is, the age gating isn't necessarily there, Twitch is still letting this fester on, and ultimately it's a pretty bad look. The reason why this policy got reversed is individuals who are playing really fast and loose with this policy were making the site look bad. I'm pretty sure that as soon as they implemented the statistic weekly change, there had to be some calls from advertisers like Nintendo who were like, hey, why am I seeing Pikachu next to a 12-inch Fox dick? That probably got
Ooh,
sent over
sweet,
to
just to
Twitch, or
get in the
maybe
firefight.
Amazon. Or I'm pretty sure Amazon, and this is speculation, called up Twitch and said, you gotta walk that one back there, pal. That's not, I'm pretty sure there was a lot of, mewing going back and forth. But that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the site continued to go down this road. I even made a video where I showcased literally a few days ago that there was literally birth experiences. You were literally sitting down, but basically just you were sliding out of the canal, so to speak, or at least that was the experience being passed. And of course, in amongst all this was the only regular streamer that I saw. Good guy, Kit Foger, that's it. He's the only huge player sitting in amongst all of this nonsense. And speaking of streamers going out of their way to make fools of themselves on this entire situation, you even have Boogie2988 who decided to get banned for a few days on Twitch TV, literally to showcase his body like this. And again, I'm blocking this out completely, but to give you a great idea here, it is effectively the Peter Griffin nudity. So I don't even know why I'm adding the black bars, but that's effectively a visualization of what we're talking about. Now, at the end of the day, okay, getting banned for being naked is about expected. But there are other situations in streamers that also decided to take this policy pushing to the final end. And one of them was one of the most popular streamers on Twitch, Amaranth. So if you don't know Amaranth, this is her right now. Literally a couple days ago, she's using physical censor bars on Twitch streams. Now, I distinctly remember Amaranth in the past actually talking about how she was effectively coerced into this situation by an abusive ex-partner of her. And before we get into it, abuse is an incredibly serious topic. So again, if you are abused, make sure to call a domestic abuse helpline or something, or contact the police or do anything you can to get out of a shitty situation. That said, I felt like it was my duty to mention that at least. If you're still watching this video and you're in a shitty situation, stop watching the video, seek help. Anyways, this is our clip. I'm going to have XQC on the bottom left because honestly it's the only clip that I could find, and I actually appreciate Felix's input in this entire thing.
You're gonna have to craft your own.
I'm happy about it.
Okay.
I'm free. She's still alive. And I don't have to wear cleavage.
That's what's crazy, dumb. I agree, XQC. That is crazy. And again, looking into her one response from January 11th of 2023, the most ignorant take is that I run into is people say, oh, you didn't change the content, you liar! Scumbag liar! I directly employ close to 20 people. I indirectly services, editing, etc. Pay work with another 9 on top of that. I would be selfish and irresponsible to do a 180 at a moment's notice. Obviously, she can't dress like a nun. This is paying the bills for a lot of people. So she gave 60 days notice to my lewd content staff, letting them know they could find other employment, but that their positions would be locked in for 2 months. Now, it's currently December of 2023, a few weeks left of the year, actually. And Amaranth is still up here, you know, by her own accord, by her own business acumen, putting up the physical censor bars. Again, proving that maybe this whole situation really had more of her input than we were let on to believe. And again, I'm just saying it because it is what it is. So, the reality of this situation, too, that kind of wiles me is, I feel like for the moral centers of TV, they were very, very okay with the idea of prohibiting unsafe slots, roulettes, and dice gambling websites. This is a policy that changed back in October 2022, when sites that were engaged in crypto gambling were basically banned off of Twitch. That's not to say gambling isn't allowed on Twitch, it is. Crypto gambling is not. See, the thing with gambling is it does a lot of age games. And I hate to sound like somebody that's like, oh, let's think of the children in this situation.
That was my mistake.
I feel like you should be allowed to do whatever you want. Generally, when you're under the age of 18, there are gates put in place to prevent people from rather egregiously financially dangerous vices. One of those vices is gambling. See, when you go to a real casino, you literally get carded. You are not allowed to go in under the age of 18. There are very strict rules there. I've never heard of a Las Vegas casino ever allowing anybody under the age of 18 to start gambling in their place. That is a very big no-no. Would they be okay with children gambling? Absolutely. It's more money in their pocket. But obviously, there are rules that we put in place to prevent people from getting started that early. Now, what Twitch did was they decided they're going to tighten rules to prohibit any streaming of listed sites that contain slots, roulette, dice games that are unlicensed in the US. And the reason they did that is because they don't offer those same consumer protections I talked about, those waiting periods, those deposit limits, the age verification systems. What Twitch is doing right now is basically just showing softcore pornography and basically creating a cam website for ages 13 and above. And again, there is no proper age gate. It's not as if an 18-plus stream has a blurred thumbnail, or it prevents an unsigned account from using it. Even with YouTube, when there are age-restricted videos, you cannot watch them unless you're signed into the platform. I mean, seriously, give it a try. Go watch any age-restricted video without a signed-in account, incognito tab. They won't even let you watch the video. They blur the thumbnail. You go to these streams, you're signed in, you can use any attached credit card or payment system to start paying for these streams, or going to their saucier links in their Linktree pinned comments. But the thing about all of this, too, is, like, obviously I feel that there may be a bit of a, I guess you could say, a predatory approach to this kind of content, too. I feel like for a lot of the men and women who are doing these thirsty streams, so to speak, are obviously catering to a demographic of individuals that are incredibly lonely, people that are more willing to part with their money, especially for, I guess you could say, internet companionship. It's the best way that I can put it. Now, to understand, if you're over the age of 18 and you're paying for this kind of stuff, I literally don't see a difference between what is happening on Twitch versus a stream. But when you involve individuals under the age of 18 and you're already getting them started on this, that is the only problem. There are age gates and restrictions you put in place to protect everyone around. I think being morally fucking righteous about getting rid of gambling is great if we apply that same level of moral righteousness across anybody. But that said, though, Twitch is making its decisions, and I don't think they're really good ones. This is probably one of the biggest backfires, in my opinion, for Twitch. And honestly, I don't know how they can expect it. Almost every site's created kind of toe the line when it comes to how much they can push that, terms of service. When it comes to YouTube, you have to do that. When you produce content, demonetization is a great, I guess you could say, corraler. Generally, when you upload something close to the edge of TOS, you get a yellow $sign, and that's YouTube basically telling you, hey, you might want to curtail this back to normal. You can upload it, but remember, you are kind of playing into that side of the content that we don't really promote, nor we monetize. But Twitch really doesn't have any safeguards or corrallers like that either. So generally, the audience, for better or worse here, or the creators, will play so close to the TOS that, yeah, they gain all the notoriety, but it just makes the site look tough to the general person outside. Now, I've seen people make comparisons between Twitch and, Twitter, for instance, and saying that, Twitter also allows lewd material interspersed with pretty much safe-for-work material as well, too. And I don't really get the whataboutism. I think that Twitter is also just as bad. I think any social media platform that has this policy where they intermix minors and adults together, they probably should have at least amazing age gate if you choose to intermix NSFW content and safe-for-work content as well. One thing that I can agree with on YouTube in regards to this is generally NSFW content, even if it is allowed on YouTube or most other platforms, there is severe age restrictions in play so that, yes, it does hurt discoverability, but it properly locks off that content to people that YouTube is, again, doing their due diligence to verify if they're over 18. It's not like they tell you, yeah, this video is definitely for adult audiences, please click here and continue ahead. And again, Twitch could do the bare minimum, but they choose not to. And in fact, if anything, they just continue to harm themselves and the public anyways. And that's generally what the situation has come down to. We can laugh at it all we want, but I'm actually a little worried for my fellow Twitch friends who literally this is their bread and butter. This is their primary source of income. I feel like this is Twitch literally begging for an apocalypse or, actually cutting ties with some pretty serious brands, which again, they don't have to. They can choose to play this in an intelligent manner. Again, I have no issue with this kind of content being around on the internet. I just think when you have minors and adults intermixing, maybe you should do your due diligence to properly separate the SFWs from the NSFW. If I sat down another person that had no idea about live streaming culture and I showed them Twitch TV, and I show them these recommended streams in the just chatting section, they would think that they're on a forum or at least close to one. Ladies and and gentlemen, I want to know what you think. Yeah, this is me, Mutahar, and if you like the stuff, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. Check out sour.gg for my candy flavor. Ooh, gorgeous, delicious. Buy all the sour for some ordinary berries. That being said, this is me, Mutahar. So we've already talked about the Aperture MC Pro Kit on my channel, but there's a reason why I've got a second one in my studio now. I recently learned that the Aperture MC Pro can double as a CRMX receiver. You can actually control third-party lights, so you don't have to buy a whole bunch of CRMX receivers, which I think is fantastic. Aperture recently just came out with their little bubble diffuser, which is a $30 accessory for the Aperture MC Pro, which has already been out for a while, but I think it adds a lot of utility to the MC Pros. This little bubble diffuser has about the equivalent surface area of 4 or 5 of the standard diffusers that come with the MC Pros. So you get a light that's 4 times softer from the same source. So if you're actually using this as a key light or something, you can get more soft shadows with this diffuser. Even though it only costs $30, it doesn't feel like it's going to break. It feels well made. It attaches really easily, and it comes with this little piece of grip you can use to attach the MC Pro to different types of mounting equipment. I really like the bubble diffuser. It looks more like a realistic, natural, practical light that you might find somewhere, because it's circular. It's not that kind of, this is clearly...
yeah, I'm getting chased by people, bro.
I just feel like a circular dome shape is a lot easier to hide and use in frame if you're actually using it to write stuff. And if you haven't already seen my review on the MC Pro kit, you should go check it out, because I go over pretty much everything that I really like about it. So today I'm going to solve a problem that I've had. I like to use these lights in my background, and how I get them mounted to the paper backdrop is I kind of sandwich the paper backdrop between one of the little metal shims that come with the MC Pro. Stick it on there and drag it around.
Oh yeah, Mavis round 2.
Let's go this way.
Oh no.
Like that, but it's kind of really annoying to do it. It's to the point where I don't want to reset up this background every single time I'm trying to make a video. And I know that there's a little adhesive that you can peel off of these little metal shims and just stick them to the walls or whatever. But I feel like once you do that, then this piece becomes disposable, because I would, whenever I tear that backdrop down, that this would go away with it, because the adhesive, it only works one time. So I never use these things, because then I won't have them anymore, even though it's like, probably worth pennies. So I called my friend Dave at Grip Tips, and he told me to use some of those flashings for doing stuff. And I went to
why didn't they go to you guys?
Little pieces of scrap metal from projects and things that I built over the years, but like the paint chips off, and don't really like the way these, I don't like the sound they make when I touch things, and I don't want to scratch my walls with them, so what I'm going to do is cover these in gaff tape.
Just chill, let them fight, then we'll kill the last squad.
Yeah, that'll work. So now I'll just tape these up behind my backdrop. One down, but the idea is now I'll have metal that's just kind of there.
Dude, I'm a ring finder.
But can quickly and easily attach those lights to my paper backdrop. And these large pieces of bright orange metal are a lot easier to reclaim and reuse for me than these tiny little, disposable shims.
That's a terrible idea, though. I find this wrong. We have res points, so I mean...
Alright, so that piece is now done. Now when one of these lights dies, I usually have one of these kits up here, and it's plugged in and turned on over there. So when one of these lights dies now,
oh, I love it, I love it. Just milking that LP.
Drink it in. And I got some nades to it. Nope, just have one.
I'm sitting on 4 arc stars and a nade. I'm ready to throw. Get down to 3 squads, 2 squads. Green will pop on us.
So if you see it go down to 3, do you want to fight? If you see it go down to 2, you want to fight right then?
We're all inside the swing.
Or do you want to fight as soon as we hear
It goes
that
down to
fight?
2. We should move in.
You don't want to go before that?
They're fighting, so we should probably go, right?
Wait till we tell they're engaged, and then. Up here. They're headed right here.
A bad spot, probably. They're engaged, right?
I think they're still pot shotting.
There's one very close to me.
Holy crap, that's not what I...
Now they know where we're at. I'd say at this point we wait and let them finish, and then we go in.
I think they saw me and they're like, ooh, fight. No, let's go. When we see somebody go down, let's do it now. No.
Now?
Yeah, ready?
Nice try, nice try. Was the game.
We have our Apex champions.
What is up, everyone, and welcome to Discobra. Thank you very much for the very generous support. Thank you, sir. That is very nice of you. Hey Tech was wondering, would you need to update the BIOS for just a GPU upgrade? My cousin has my old PC from about 2020, and he's going from a 2070 Super to a 4070 Ti. Not sure on the motherboard for compatibility. Buy Windows 10 Professional for $15, activate instantly online with Microsoft, and keep it forever. Don't pay full price. Get the best deal from our sponsor, URCD Keys, using our link in the video description below. Full details on how this amazing deal works at the end of the video. That was a great question. No, that generally does not make any difference whatsoever. Having said that, if the BIOS is from 2020, it needs to be upgraded because there have been a lot of security vulnerabilities found since then, and it would be unkind to give somebody a machine that is now that insecure. But generally, graphics cards don't care about your BIOS revision. You upgrade your BIOS for CPU support, not for GPU support, because your graphics card has its own BIOS built in. Your graphics card basically contains a very, very basically flag wave that when the motherboard boots up and the CPU initializes, it looks over at the first PCI Express slot and goes, "Is there a video card?" The video card goes, "Yep, I'm a video card." Cool! Hand it off to you. Yay, I'm a video card. And then the video card boots. Because fun fact, that video card's a computer too. It has a BIOS and an operating system on board just like your computer does. However, please update your BIOS, folks. Looking for a Windows 10 or 11 product key, but you don't want to spend $100 to $200 for it? Our sponsor, URCD Keys, provides discounted Windows keys at amazing prices. $15 for Windows 10 Professional, $21 for Windows 11 Professional, and just $60 for Microsoft Office 2021 Professional Plus. These product keys are the real deal. They activate directly with Microsoft Online, link to your Microsoft account, and they work forever. For Windows, you simply go to Settings, Update and Security, Activation, click Change Product Key, paste the key provided by URCD keys, and in seconds, you're activated with Microsoft. For Office, go to setup.office.com, sign in with your Microsoft account, paste the product key provided by URCD keys, and then download Office 2021 Pro Plus directly from Microsoft. Remember to use the discount code TD20 to save 25% off the already deeply discounted prices and support our channel at the same time. We have been using product keys from URCD Keys for almost 5 years now without any issues and encourage you to do so as well.
There are two very different approaches to manufacturing computer parts and servers in Asia's sprawling mega factories. There's the neurotically clean, obsessively sterile style of assembly, and then the more traditional approach to manufacturing. This is a computer case factory, and it's kinda loud. The cases you buy are made in places just like this. Grungy, dirty, and oily, this factory is Inwin's oldest. There's character in these machines, and the cold-blooded efficiency gained from handmade customizations is what earned Inwin the industry position and the money to make its clean, new facility that we see later in this video. In this special series, we tour around Taiwan to look at some of the most important factories in the computer industry, giving you an exclusive, close-access look at how PC parts are really made. We'll be learning about how computer cases are made, showing the oily conveyor belts of fan bearing factories, and studying some of the most advanced RAM automation facilities around. These videos will get posted every Saturday the next month, so check back regularly to see everything ranging from the pristine factories to the harsher realities of manufacturing. And we won't be shielding you from what factory life can really be like.
Match found.
Icon to get each tour posted in this educational series. But now, let's get started with neighboring factories where cases and servers are getting hand-assembled, packaged, and loaded into trucks for delivery. Our series starts in the heart of Taoyuan, Taiwan.
Shield and sword.
This video is brought to you by you and purchases on store.gamersnexus.net. These travel documentaries are some of our most educational but expensive content, and purchases of our brand new GN15 fully custom mouse mat are funding our factory tour series. The special blue and yellow GN15 mouse mat features a scattered PC component design, showing blower and axial GPUs, fans, keyboard, CPUs, and small devices. It's wide enough to accommodate your mouse and your keyboard, and the underside uses a custom, vibrant yellow rubber that's hard to get. Color match to the top design and giving a unique flair to the mouse mat. The border is made of bright blue stitching for added endurance against spraying and for some visual pop. Grab the GN15 mouse mat on store.gamersnexus.net in both the standard variants or get a special autographed version. This is the best way to support our series, so thank you for your support, and let's get started.
I will soothe this turmoil.
The chaotic,
with
ruthless
fire
efficiency of the old and the painstaking cleanliness of the new. It's a classic story that well encapsulates Taiwan, where these Inwin factories are located. From a hectic, anything for the job grit to technological precision. Today, we're showing you Inwin's clean server and system factory, where hundreds of people work to bring products from metal stamping down the street to the server assembly station. But there's only one problem. They wouldn't let us walk in just any clothes, so we had to dress up like this. They didn't have a hat that fit my head. Fortunately, they were too embarrassed to say no at that point, so we got to go in anyway. And the smiling like nerds is an optional part of the uniform. Let's tour Inwin's Zhongxing factory. This is a server, delivered freshly assembled on an anti-static splatter.
Enemy spotted A.
These servers are built in a brand new factory for big clients we can't name.
Spike planted.
Hints later in the video. Your web traffic has probably ended up on many of these servers. Each server is not only built, but tested.
One enemy remaining.
The testing process sounds like good heaven. We start our tour in the assembly line, which, just by the price of CPUs and RAM alone, is probably one of the most expensive areas per square foot in Taiwan. Technicians take trays filled
We
with
won
terabytes
because we
of
were
RAM,
focused.
multiple
Keep
EPIC or
that.
Xeon CPUs, and head to the conveyor workstation. From here, we check each build order on the screen and start assembling the actual components of the server by hand. The cases are made down the way by another Inwin factory that we'll talk about later, actually covered in the past. There's 6 complete assembly lines per floor at any given time for this process. Each features its own SOP for the customer order. Per day, this factory can burn through about 80 servers per line, maxing out at around 480 servers for this floor alone. A different line is
Neon mid.
2U systems due to changes in the size and the process. And for full configurations with maximized RAM, an assembly line crew might socket upwards of 1,000 sticks per day. Betting this job application asks, how strong your thumbs are.
Spike down B.
They're automatically carried down the conveyor belt and moved station to station. Eventually, the server is brought into a server elevator and brought out of sight. But here at GN, we're still developing object permanence. So we asked the Inwin crew to prove that the server still existed once it went up the elevator. They told us we'd have to figure out a way. Sometimes that
Enemy spotted B.
One
40.
enemy remaining.
To your left, to your left.
Okay, time for a protein shake. Sage, remember that you can't save everyone. We save who we can. That's enough.
After causing a huge scene and getting the attention of the factory floor managers who probably don't want a headline about a factory accident involving a YouTuber, and after I ensured there was absolutely no evidence of our dangerous hijinks, we finally were ready to be greeted with our hard-earned shot of a server coming across the belt.
We're calling.
Enemy spotted A. Launching smoke.
Good enough. Let's move to the testing part of the fact. After the machines progress through this conveyor maze assembly line, they make their way up this ginormous
Flank, flank.
Last player standing.
I know.
Get burned just in this room alone. As for its power,
That was my fault a bit.
80 total test lines, each capable of delivering 5,000 watts. The total power handling capacity of the testing floor for this part of the factory is a staggering 400 kilowatts. There are all kinds of special cooling and air handling units to make this all possible too, and it's spread over the entire part of the floor. Total burn-in time is 2 hours per server at 10 units per round, and one guy is able to control almost all of it. Meet the man with the most powerful index finger in the world, ranging from entering BIOS hundreds of times per day. The test racks in this area cycle through IO testing to make sure all the ports fire, CPUs
Spike
burned
down
in,
B.
coolers burned in, and even testing the entire RPM range for the fan. And it sounds kind of like an aircraft carrier when they all fire at once, so prepare your ears.
And
Sage, what is
no,
that crosshair?
OSHA doesn't exist.
Shut up.
Also, why?
Oh yeah, monster on the loose.
I have a better one. Wanna know it?
One enemy remaining.
The testing suite is largely developed by the factory itself.
Sage, I have a
Software
better
designed
crosshair.
to
Wanna see it?
detect issues with bad components to test failure.
Nope.
Anything that
I'll
fails
just
will
stay
be
alive
repaired
so I don't have to look
where
at you.
technicians will identify the bad part and rescue the rest of the server. Some bad components, like sticks of RAM, can be sent in for board-level repair by the original supplier, especially since many of these factories are local to Taiwan, making it logistically easy. In a side room, there's additional testing for low-volume custom builds. I was briefly assigned a very important job. They said something about not being possible to screw up or something like that. I had to move the monitors up and down with a button.
Take them one by one.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to keep that job, probably because it would be demoralizing for other people to see how good I was at pushing that button. But you can see that it actuates the monitors and the peripherals. These stations are also used for documentation and photography to keep a record of serial numbers and parts. After all this, the servers are loaded onto pallets when testing is complete, and then tracked clear to packaging. But there's one more secret room.
My territory, my room. Spike down, B.
Huge amounts of perfectly installed plumbing, all lined up cleanly on the ceiling of this room, allows for up to 50 or 20 kilowatts of servers to be tested at once. Comes first. The water pumps through these huge hoses with pressure gauges placed throughout to help check the leaks. They're also checking the water temperature here. This can be configured to test water cooling for entire server racks, or multiple even, for companies that want to build a server farm, or they can test a single unit at a special station. All the water is pumped to a giant radiator on the roof. Yes, we did ask, and they said no, we can't see it this time.
Is the radiator? Is the radiator?
30 seconds left.
Give me a corpse.
Last player standing.
But because they don't need to worry about the dexterity of a drone climbing a ladder, we were able to get some shots anyway. It looks exactly what they told us it looks like. Now we go to a whole other...
Don't stop fighting.
But because they don't need to worry about the dexterity of a drone climbing a ladder, we were able to get some shots anyway. And it looks exactly like what they told us it looks like. Now we go to a whole other beast on its own, the packaging station. Here, pallets upon pallets of servers are unloaded onto conveyor belts. Technicians screw all the panels together for the server and perform final quality checks and inspections for all components.
Spike down, B.
After doing these final steps, and despite being maybe one of the least sophisticated...
One enemy remaining.
The automation around a bowl of food is surprising and satisfying. Each box gets auto-taped, rotated, and then auto-taped again. And although we couldn't name any of the clients earlier, there might be something that some of them are, but we're not sure.
You are in
this
our
factory
way.
is to see. It's
I see how
just
it
one of
is.
the factories we're looking at today.
Okay.
Just down the street,
Respect their
the
elders.
longest standing, as they call it, traditional factory. And now we're back here. Told you we keep it real about the truth of factory life, and this particular factory underscores some of those realities. These floors are kept dark to help combat the heat and the humidity of Taiwan, combined with the heat of ovens baking cases at nearly 200 degrees Celsius. In this old factory, cases are automatically moved along a ceiling-mounted conveyor line using hooks. One by one, the cases climb to get painted and then baked. The walkways are
You will
crowded
not
with
kill
machines
my
and
ally.
massive equipment. Clearly, this was grown into. The claustrophobic wouldn't do
Spike
well
down,
here,
mid.
as I learned. Nor would the
One
opponent.
enemy remaining.
It's a noisy environment with the smell of paint everywhere, and the musical tones of
Weapon
punch.
Are you gonna ace?
That's all you from.
Is he gonna ace?
Stark contrast to the ever-present sound
He's
of
gonna
the
ace.
waterfalls surrounding this area. On the scale of factories we've been to, the presence of at least respirators is better, sadly, than we've seen in some others. But it's certainly not conditions that we know many of you would be used to in the modern West. This is, however, a reality of manufacturing in the world. Between the noise and the air of many of the non-robotic painting factories we've been to, floor managers at various companies have told us that it's been hard to keep staff around for very long, especially with the rise of the service industry. Robots have been slowly filling in the gaps for this former manual workforce, as we showed in our previous automated painting factory tour that Liam Lee uses. Maybe in instances like these, though, robots are for the best. As for the factory work, the workers prep the cases and paint them as they're carried from one paint booth to another. The hooks are mounted in a way to minimize obstructions to the paint, and workers manually mask some parts of the cases. They're brought in at a fixed pace through the entire painting process.
One enemy remaining.
More automation is introduced for the generalized coating, whereas the earlier parts focus on hard-to-hit spots. These waterfalls help wash the overspray down into a catch basin mixed with paint and water, amounting to millions upon millions of liters of use annually. The factory is able to recapture and reclaim much of that water and squeeze the paint out of it. Another thing we showed in that prior Liam Lee painting factory tour, if you're curious how that
What is your
The point
crosshair?
is to reduce usage as much as possible. Pipes are exposed outside of these buildings in Taiwan that allow the Taiwanese government to perform unannounced audits of the filtration quality as well. The entire process for painting each case takes about 40 minutes, and the baking process starts first at 75 degrees Celsius to slowly harden the shell, then it ramps to 180 degrees, and finally 200 degrees for powder coating. Inwin is slowly modernizing all of its factories to be more like its new server facility. And many other factories in Asia that we've seen have also been moving increasingly to robotics. We've encountered this more and more over the years in our factory tour series. And although the grit of a machine shop and tooling factory will be blended with the stale precision of robots over time, the frenetic pace of these factories will never go away. In our time,
one enemy remaining.
Unspoken understanding between everyone working of who needs to be where and when. There's an art to staying out of the way, but being productive here. We were constantly in the way. It's only what some people do. So, sorry. To see the differences, though, between the quiet and collaborative design rooms filled with inspirational artwork, bright colors, and art.
I'm contributing.
Case designs and the factories in which they're all made is a privilege of ours to share with you. And we're excited to continue reporting on what's behind the products you buy in the PC industry. If you want to learn more about the front end of product design prior to manufacturing, we have a tour of Inwin's design room linked in the video description. And we also have a full playlist of dozens of factories to check out. After all these steps, the products finally get packaged outside and shipped in the millions to PC builders and data centers around the world. In our next tours, we'll be looking at RAM programming and automation, memory manufacturing and SMT lines, bearing manufacturing for fans, and lasers. So be sure to subscribe. Also be sure to tell YouTube that you want all of our notifications to make sure you're told about these. Check back regularly. We're thrilled to bring you
one
more
enemy
unfiltered
remaining.
looks at this world's manufacturing
Spike down
PC
mid.
parts. So please grab something on store.gamersnexus.net if you'd like to help fund our next trip to factories. Thanks for watching as always, and see you all next time.
Nice.
What is up, people? Hope we're all doing well. Welcome back
Yeah.
to the channel. If you guys are a
That was
diehard
nice.
esports fan, I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation.
Nice.
I got the chance to talk to Fatality, one of the earliest on esports pros of all time. This dude has been in the scene for like 2 decades. I mean, it's crazy what he
But I
accomplished
don't
back
put
in his
trips.
late
I'm
days
gonna
as
try
an
something.
esports pro player.
Okay,
And I
then.
got to talk to him on the golf course. He had a great perspective on streaming and gaming and where esports was and where it is today. So I hope you guys
Let's
truly
see
enjoy this
if that
conversation.
works.
And thank you all who've been leaving comments and subscribing to the channel. We greatly appreciate you guys for giving us the opportunity to do things like this. I love interviewing people. I love talking to people. You guys probably know that by now. And so I hope you enjoy me sitting there interviewing Fatality, one of the all-time GOATs of esports.
Here it is.
That was nice.
Alright, we are here with a very special one, that being Fatality. Been seeing a lot of you pop up on Twitter as of late, so good to finally meet you.
Spike
you been
down
enjoying
mid.
this fine round of golf so far today?
Yeah, for sure. I live here locally in Las Vegas, so always cool to see more gamers come to Vegas.
One enemy remaining.
Then,
Oh my god, I love you.
I love coming up here, and this is like probably the best day I've ever played here, so it's really nice.
And just so in case people don't
Last
know,
player
because,
standing.
this whole esports thing has been developed
Your
for quite
duty
some
is
time
not
now.
come on.
And always unique to hear your perspective on social media because you are one of the earlier
Why
esports
didn't you
pros.
raise
How I've
me?
always defined you. If you don't mind, you can
Shut
give like a
up.
quick introduction to yourself and maybe
That's
the newer
so
generation
negative,
of
like,
esports
what?
followers, just so they know about you.
Yeah, my nickname is Fatality, Fable 1.
So negative. The guy Rez just got the kill.
Original esports players.
Come on.
Last round.
Why don't
before
you
the
take
switch.
your negativity instead of being negative about the person that I chose to Rez? Huh, Mr. Hypocrite?
Won 12 world championships.
I am sorry.
And then
I'm very
started a
sorry
whole
about
lifestyle
what
brand and so forth. And basically created the blueprint for like what gamers are using today. creating
I'm a good
brands,
player. Let me pat myself on the back.
so forth. And basically, I did that for
Okay.
about 17 years. Had product basically in over 100 countries and sold a lot of headphones. But did a lot of product partnerships and collabs with.
I've
big
only
companies
died
like
3
Distribution.
times. I've
What's it
got
been like for
people
you
here.
to see like the progression over the past decade and a half?
Oh, yeah, I got
in
people
the
here.
esports space. Like, it's got to be pretty crazy to be one of the first and to see.
Oh, I got a lot.
Time and time again. So what's it been like for you?
Yeah, well, it's crazy. Like, for me, I immediately take this because I want my story, my secrets of how I play the game to be secret. And so when I go to tournaments, that's when you get to see me and see me play. So I was never really big on the game when I grew up, just because I was like, I want to be mysterious and I want people to fear me. So when I'm playing in a tournament, I'm trying to think of every advantage I can get to have competitive advantage over my opponent. So I think where I see it today is that influencers have a new way of like monetizing that, and it actually trumps being an esports player to some degree. So I think just the landscape has changed now, where the influencer has
one enemy remaining. Spike down A.
They
were not good
enough. So I was the first guy really making serious money from.
Oh, pat me on the
Switching
back
sides. I did this for
again.
a long time, and I think for about
Call
10 or
me a
12 years,
good
I was
boy
doing
and
it
put a
for
leash on me.
So I've been doing it a long time, and it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, it was completely different back then. I mean, it was all about competition and winning, and
Take
you
me
definitely
for
don't
a
want to share
walk.
demos, don't want to share any content. Like, so I had a closed network of people I trained with, like 5 or 6 guys, and I had them all swear to secrecy and. You know,
Let me go to the
if someone
park
asks you a
and
question
play
like,
with my
you know,
friends.
what map is Fatality good at? I'm like, you have to tell him he's good at all of them. You know, I told them like what they had to say to press, just because I was like, I don't want anyone to know anything about me. You'll see it when we're playing a tournament.
That is such an interesting perspective to have because nowadays people are debating whether or not to stream their scrims because there is such a monetizable or financial aspect to it. To give people a better idea, when you first got into Quake or esports, can you give people like the tournament prize pool like average compared to nowadays? The typical average is like $1 million tournament, right? Back when we first started, what was that like?
The first year I think was like 25 grand for the first prize pool, and then later on that year it was 100,000 and another $100,000 tournament. I actually won both of them, and I won 40 grand and 25 grand. I won like 100 grand for playing, and then we had $1 million.
One enemy remaining.
And I became a world champion.
How is Neo not dead? I hit you for 100.
I killed her. I killed her. What are you talking about? She's dead.
I'm just saying, like, bro. I hit this guy 100.
Bro, I crawled from the bottom to the middle.
Very similar to Quake, but that was
Oh
that
my
was most money you could win
God,
back then. I mean, I
great.
was training, 8, 12,
like my
16,
son,
18 hours a day.
I'm about to come off for you too. And look at me with my 10-3. 10-3. You do the division there. Who's on top for real? Who's on top? 10-3, baby. Woo!
To get into gaming esports then.
That's more than a 3-point something. Come on now.
Right.
3.3. I'm a 3.3.
I played that during the full era, and I won every time I ever entered. But my parents were going to fly me to the West Coast to go play a tournament back then. And then I think esports kind of grew a little bit, and obviously it became more accessible for everyone to go to it. And then you also kind of know there was more there's actually when you can win.
I'm planting B.
Like in 2000, April, when we played in the CPL summer event, that was like our prize purse, and that was like
one enemy remaining.
Best player in the world came to it. And,
Why don't you guys close that?
Windows fighting.
yeah, I ended up winning the whole tournament. It was pretty
Last one for me for you is, what would you say is the biggest difference you have noticed from back when you first started competing, or even towards the tail end, and then till today's esports? Like, what is the biggest difference between esports players then and what you've seen esports players now?
Do not fight.
Oh my god.
Esports players, I mean,
This guy's went off my title.
it was really a big hustle when they're
Match
days.
point.
Because like I feared every day.
Okay, Google.
And so it was a lot.
What's 16 divided by 9?
Because like if I didn't win, if I took second, I
16
wouldn't get
divided
this
by
interview.
9
I
is
wouldn't get. I
approximately
wouldn't be on TV. I wouldn't be on.
1.78.
I wouldn't be on it. So for me, like the pressure of like winning was so monumental every time because if I took second, my career could be over. And so it was really stressful back then. Now today, there's hundreds.
Continue to
Okay, Google. What's 11 divided by 3?
Companies come in and sponsor
11
the whole
divided
team
by
and they have
3
a whole
is
business plan around it.
approximately 3.67.
I was really more like a lone wolf back then and just trying to fight my way, to success.
Awesome. That was incredible. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man. I know.
Well, if I can't fix this, maybe AMD is not expensive. You see, 2 months ago, I traded my NVIDIA GPU for an AMD card. It was about $300 and fixed quite a few problems.
No charges.
Stuff like excessive idle power.
I got Sage back here.
In-game. Stuff like
Oh no, it's 22 on there. Oh,
we read through
up there to your left.
all of your comments.
Oh, he's throwing the shit on you. Goofy.
I'm distracted by the 90s tribal dance. It's been a minute since I've seen one of those in the wild. One reply. It's okay, the first things that were popular in the past, like
One enemy remaining.
Kaboom!
that was actually pretty good. And some of them were great suggestions. So we're going to cover what NVIDIA bugs AMD have fixed and what bugs they have caused. And with the
Good game, good game.
either get these issues resolved or potentially
I wasn't the worst. I feel like I was the MVP. I was the real MVP, but nobody's gonna give it to me.
Before it falls out of the sky.
Price for what you want to sell, then you need to check out Jabba. Jabba is a community-driven marketplace quickly becoming the ultimate destination for PC hardware, from entire builds to GPUs, components, and accessories. With Jabba, you buy and sell from a community of gamers just like you, and you get to keep more of your money compared to eBay. But that's not all. If money ASAP and minimal hassle is exactly what you are after, Jabba will even buy your graphics card from you directly. And as part of their community-driven ethos, they have done a great job collaborating with respected tech YouTubers to highlight some of the best options for the holidays. There is a lot to love, so why wait? Make your next upgrade more affordable by clicking on the Jabba sponsor link below. So the main reason I see for going for it
Pretty nice. Mr. Mac. What the fuck? You didn't launch?
An AMD GPU is you typically get more gaming performance for less money. That's pretty well known for most gamers. But many of you were quick to point out that in my situation, that surprisingly isn't the case. But how does that work? How have I saved $300 by going for AMD, yet it's still more costly than if I got a more expensive NVIDIA card? Let me show you how this is possible. This right here. In the first video, one of the things that we tested was idle power draw, and the AMD card sucked back about 3 times more electricity, while doing, well, nearly nothing. Something was obviously wrong. I worked that out to be around $50 to $70 more in electricity costs per year, but could go much higher than that, depending on where you live. This really should not be happening, and most people in the comment section with similar cards were reporting more like 10 watts at idle, which is much closer to what I was getting with my NVIDIA card. So if we can't fix this abnormally high power draw issue, the argument that AMD could cost more in the long run is valid, at least in my situation right now, even if it would take many years of the computer idling. But there's a few things that we can try. Let me show you. And the first thing that I wanted to do was to update the drivers. There has been a new driver released, and I wanted to give AMD at least the opportunity to be able to fix it in a driver update. So new drivers equates to, in the total board power, nearly 80 watts. If anything, that's slightly higher. So having confirmed that AMD haven't fixed this yet for my card, it was time to test some of your suggestions. And what an interesting suggestion, enabling FreeSync from Megadoom. I can really see the logic there. FreeSync didn't seem to make a difference at all. We're still talking mid-70s, high 70s, and enabling them was exactly the same. But one of the most popular suggestions was lowering the refresh rate of the monitors while not gaming. I'd personally hate to have to change this every single time I game, but let's see if it even works by setting all 3 screens to 60 Hz. Which makes things even more interesting given that we're still hovering around 75, 78 watts. So what we're going to have to do now is start disconnecting some of the displays, which was pretty much the joint top suggestion from you guys, as well as the refresh rate adjustment. So let's see what happens if you're not running a triple monitor setup. And then we're going to disconnect this display. How did that change things? Wow. We just dropped down to 42 watts. That's almost half. Disconnect this display. Keep changes. 33 watts. Still better. Now we are getting somewhere. Every new display attached seems to cause a big jump in idle power draw. So well done to everyone that suggested that. However, we still aren't in the 10 watt range that I would expect. But then something occurred to me that nobody suggested. Does it have something to do with using 2 different resolutions? What if that was the issue? This is probably going to be a whole boatload of sketchiness, so please bear with me. Here we go. We now have 3 1440p monitors connected. So if we disconnect this display, we go from 80 to high 40s. If we disconnect this display, oh, we have gone down to the 20s, 19, 16, 13. So at least in my setup, enabling system-wide FreeSync really didn't do anything. Increasing, decreasing, or matching the refresh rate did have an impact on idle power draw, but was relatively minor compared to matching the resolution and reducing the quantity of displays. The lower, the better. But there's a couple things I do need to highlight. This does seem more common on AMD, but really isn't an AMD-only issue. A simple Google search would show plenty of cases for both manufacturers. Nevertheless, the argument of AMD costing me more in the long run has some merit, but how do we go about quantifying that? You know me, I love numbers and logic, so at what point does this bug make AMD more expensive than the NVIDIA card I swapped from? Well, in a worst case scenario, if my computer did nothing but idle, it would take over 4 years for my total cost to match the cost of the NVIDIA GPU. But to be fair to AMD, within those 4 years, something would have changed. That calculation. Either one or all of my monitor's backlights might have died from the NVIDIA bug that I was trying to fix, and that would give me another 4 years to a decade of inflated electricity costs to play with, or the bug will hopefully be resolved, and I'll update you if and when that does. But, like I said in the first video, I am not here to gloss over any AMD issues. I'm here to share my experience, and this is what I'm currently facing. But to be fair to AMD, as we have been with NVIDIA, there's one more thing that we're going to do later that could fix this whole idle power draw situation completely, and should bring our costs right down. Speaking about weird things swapping from NVIDIA, one of the things we compared in the first video was the major color differences observed between AMD and NVIDIA in every one of my video files. The NVIDIA card looked more saturated, but lost a lot of detail in the high and the low lights, to the point where a 5-story sign was barely legible in the day, compared to AMD. And this created quite the whirlwind of suggestions from you guys, from how AMD and NVIDIA encode video differently, which is irrelevant on an external recorder, but we will look into that in the future, to NVIDIA compressing the video to boost FPS and crush AMD through shady tactics. I mean, maybe, but that sounds very AMD fanboyish without at least a little bit of evidence to back it up, and I am intentionally avoiding overly passionate negative comments without evidence. That's a fanboy red flag to me, and I'm trying my best to be objective throughout, which is exactly why the first video was showing the initial differences, which required me to swap, then test. There is no other steps involved in that, because if I swapped, changed a bunch of stuff, and then went, look, NVIDIA much better, you can barely even see AMD graphics, that is not a fair comparison. That's manipulation. But that doesn't mean that investigating these differences isn't useful in understanding how best to correct for them, because out of all the comments, the one that was most upvoted was only a band-aid to the problem. It is true that you can adjust the colors to get a look that you prefer, but what you are essentially doing is manipulating the input to get a desired output. That isn't resolving the problem, that's circumventing or avoiding it. And I don't want to manipulate anything. I want NVIDIA and AMD to do that for me, so that I can compare and show you the differences in how they handle it. Which brings us back to the color difference. I tested all of your comments, and the one that got the two cards closest to each other was editing the RGB color range. This can be set in the NVIDIA control panel and here in the AMD control software. Having the range set to limited can be great depending on the content and the display, but for most PC users, you'll likely want to set this to full range. It doesn't perfectly match the visuals for the two cards. AMD is a little clearer, but this is testing side by side at a ridiculous bitrate on an OLED screen. Essentially, now that we've adjusted the settings, you likely won't notice a difference between the two. But at default, there clearly was a difference in visual output based on how NVIDIA and AMD handled their default configuration in my system. So where does that leave AMD now? What bugs have they fixed, and what bugs have they fixed? Well, from the first video, AMD fixed the fact that my monitors were refused to sleep. This was a big issue for me. I'm happy to report that it is still fixed. They also fixed the issue with gaming on my TV upstairs. As soon as the NVIDIA drivers kicked in, the outrages were completely fixed, which hasn't been an issue for AMD. But an update on one of the AMD issues that popped up in the first video is that my camera or capture card just stopped working. It stopped working completely after I swapped from NVIDIA. And I'm happy to report that it resolved itself, as well as accessing the GPU power sensors within the card. Both of these likely from the driver updates. The visual differences, they are now mostly corrected, with a simple configuration change. But the thing that's still persisting is the abnormally high power draw. Though I mentioned earlier, we might have something that completes that. And not only is it something that I would recommend if you have a swap like this, it's something I tend to do about every 18 months regardless for proper maintenance. So let's see what difference a fresh install makes and get a new copy of Windows 11 on the machine. But we're going to do this on a brand new SSD so that I can revert back to that one and have exactly the same setup as I currently do, in case I need to test things. Yeah, it's made no difference at all. It's still pretty much exactly the same. 1, 2, and 3. So we are still suffering from the other. Oh, and then update on Luna, she is doing wonderfully. She's can you go down? Okay. Can you go down? You want to say hello to everyone? She actually had a health scare just after the last video and before Thanksgiving, so she's back to loving life, loving food, and her favourite. But to fully understand the AMD swap, check out the original video where I cover my main issues and finally swap to AMD. And you can check that out by clicking here. Otherwise, guys, share, like, subscribe, they are always appreciated, and I honestly hope you have a wonderful time over the holidays.
What's up, studio? Welcome back to, well, we do this every December, I guess. It's a bit of a gift exchange on the studio channel. We're all giving, I don't know if they're all necessarily tech gifts, but we're going to be exchanging gifts and explaining why there may be good gifts you might want to give to each other. We all have been assigned someone we're going to give a gift to, and the gifts are right here. We all wrap them, and they're ready to go. So without any further ado, we can start. I don't know how we started. Who's started? Whose birthday? Brandon.
No, it's actually you. Your birthday's next. Your birthday's next.
So you go first. Alright, okay. Let's start.
Whoever has been... Oh, no. That's me. Yeah, doing this. There you go. I do. I double check them. So you can get on one day. I double check the friends. Oh, I know you have a promote. I promoted on a car. Well, and I wanted to see something really cool I saw on the internet. The RF found one. They have a recycle disposable camera. What? Oh, that was so cool! Tessa, you will be the only person shooting on a cine sensor with a disposable camera with crashing cars. Exactly. That's the writing on this. Don't use gel pens. We get a couple of stuff with that writing. Yeah. Oh! It's like a lens. No, it's a whole lens. It's a whole lens. Yeah, it's that's pretty good. So someone took that. Yeah, someone took it out of this camera and mounted it on our. That's so slick. Yeah. He gives it that like Vaseline effect. Oh yeah. That's my ball. I need some of that. Holy crap. It's very much like that's why you gotta come in. Right. It's like a creative flex. Like you're not getting it works a lot. But it's a you are the only person now that has the Komodo disposable camera. That's new. Yeah, right. This is $30. So it's classic. Let's go, baby. It's what they do to hands. They take the cap for a Canon RF lens and then plug the lens cap in the two parts. They just poke a hole in it and then they put the disposable camera between that. So that what you're holding right now is like the lens cap and bottom for it. Yeah. And it's F10 the body. Whoa. That is cool. Like we know the body is literally just the body cap and the lens. Yeah. And it's focused to infinity. So yeah. No macros on it.
You know, I should mention the one rule we did have is everyone's gift has to be under $50 for the gift itself. No, just fit for a couple extra dollars. $50. That's the one. Next up, let's see. And that.
This is it. Oh my god. This is for Ellen. Oh, this is perfect. You told me a very funny story once about you making a hardware sim. So for less than $50, this is a build your own sim. No way! Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna save this. Like we're gonna use it right now. We're gonna get a real one. I'm not good at that. Alright, you heard it here first. New waveform beat song. Yeah. I guess. Oh, sorry, man. That's a story. Where did you find it? He made it. Yes, I made it. No, Amazon. Perfect. Perfect. Let me give it a description. Adam, your turn.
Let's go play this. Boxing Simulator. Let's go see what this is all about. Maybe I can play it with this. The game wasn't designed to support controllers. Okay, buddy. Well, where's the controller then? Let's knock this bitch out then.
This is a video about the most famous problem in game theory. Problems of this sort pop up everywhere, from nations locked in conflict to roommates doing the dishes. Even game shows have been based around this concept. Figuring out the best strategy can mean the difference between life and death, war and peace, flourishing and the destruction of the planet. And in the mechanics of this game, we may find the very source of one of the most unexpected phenomena in nature: cooperation. On the 3rd of September 1949, an American weather monitoring plane collected air samples over Japan. In those samples, they found traces of radioactive material. The Navy quickly collected and tested rainwater samples from their ships and bases all over the world. They also detected small amounts of cerium-141 and yttrium-91. But these isotopes have half-lives of 1 or 2 months, so they must have been produced recently. And the only place they could have come from was a nuclear explosion. But the US hadn't performed any tests that year, so the only possible conclusion was that the Soviet Union had figured out how to make a nuclear bomb. This was the news the Americans had been dreading. Their
Oh my god, I knocked your bitch ass out. He got beat the fuck up. How'd I do that? I don't know. Wow. Don't you get your ass up.